which I often forget to do. Are we starting 50? It is 53, right?
It's 53, yeah.
Okay.
L-I-I-I.
Yes. Yeah. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I am a 34-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them because I was on a quest to determine if society had been sleeping on the series. I said yes. Now I'm seeing if society has also been sleeping on the Heroes of Olympus series. And I'm joined today by someone who had historically said that the sequel series did not captivate them. But before we hit record, mentioned they are quite captivated. It's Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions. Red, how's it going?
Hello. I'm so happy to be here again. The fact that I will never live down once calling the Percy Jackson book stupid has been one of the best things in my life for how many Percy Jackson things I get invited to, which is fun for me.
The legacy lives on. I love also, I don't know if you've noticed, but the legacy of your first appearance on TNO is mentioning stuff about the sequel series in vague enough terms where like I gathered nothing from any of the comments that you made. And then a lot of the comments on Spotify will be like, oh my gosh, there's so many spoilers. And it's like, it was all, I guess, Roman to me. Like it was all, even though I took Latin in high school, it all went over my head. No one worry. But I'm stoked to have you back. It's been a minute.
Thanks. Yeah. No, the art of dropping a major spoiler in a context where nobody knows it's a spoiler is one of my favorite things to cultivate. It's just literary foreshadowing, but repackaged for fandom instead of, writing. So
yeah. It goes way back for me, too. In the first episode of Potterless, my Harry Potter podcast, that was the first thing that really took off. In the first episode, my guest, I forget exactly what the conversation was, but at some point, I talked about loving the twins, the Weasley twins, and they said something that, like, of course, to me, I didn't get it, but to everyone else, made it very clear that they were like, oh, yeah, but one dies. Like, and it completely went over my head. And shout out to my listeners for, like, keeping that very much under wraps. And then when I finally got to that, everyone was like, go back and listen to this part of episode 1. And it's like, wow.
Yeah. Well, now we're in uncharted territory because this is well past the point where I had stopped reading the Roman series on my own. So like, this is one of those things where I just drop in for these chapters and I just get a little bite of this book without necessarily the full content, which is fun because it's been a really...
Oh, so you are not how I didn't realize how much of Heroes of Olympus have you read? How confused are you right now?
Oh, I'm not that confused. I think I did actually read up to the ending of the book where Percy and Annabeth fall into Tartarus together.
Okay, the third one.
Yeah, so I think this is basically because when did this book come out? Because
2014-ish, I think.
Yeah, that was around the time where I was like locking into college and stuff like that, and I couldn't really focus on this. But yeah, I remember I saw that happen, and I was like, I'm sure that's going to be fun for them. But those are the characters I like the most. Like one of my problems with getting into the Rome series was that I was so like Percy's the best character ever. I love being in his POV. It's so fun. I mean, not for him, but for me.
Of course.
And then like I was so attached to the original cast, and then they were like, here's 10 million new guys. I was like, okay, well, there's a little much for me. This is kind of saying like anime tournament arc where it's like, here's 5 million new characters, and it's like 3 of them are going to matter, but you don't know which 3, so you got to kind of pay attention to all of them. And then they were like, don't worry, we're chucking them into hell. I was like, no. But then this book turns out to be mostly about that, which is awesome. So like kind of a real treat for me to get back into my adolescent OTP of choice, as it were.
I've been saying this on the pod, but this book has easily been my favorite in the sequel series. And I think the most fun is the strangely romantic comedy themed Percy and Annabeth trek through the underworld's deepest pit, Tartarus.
Yep.
It's just the first time where they get to like really spend quality alone time together.
Yeah,
it's really fun. So it's been really solid. I've enjoyed it. And yeah, the lead up to this in this book, basically what we've got is Annabeth and Percy working their way through Tartarus to try and get to the doors of death from that side. And then the other folks from the group of 7 making their way from the other side. They basically pick up exactly where book 3 left off. They're going from the other side. They're fighting people along the way. But I'm glad it worked down because these chapters that we're covering today, 53 through 56, are just Percy and Annabeth stuff. And it's just as they are getting towards the ultimate goal. They have fended off some of the big bads, most recently Achilles, the goddess of despair, and they've fended off Ri, and they've made their way through with the help of Bob the Titan and Damison the giant. So they're making their way, and we just get some fun, spooky chapters here featuring many names that I was familiar with because of Hades the game.
Yeah. I was going to say this is really good timing because I just, at time of recording, wrapped up 10 7-hour streams of playing through, getting credits roll and true ending on Hades.
On the first one or the second?
First one. I am planning on starting to stream the second very soon. Because basically the whole reason I was streaming Hades was because I wanted to stream Hades too, but I was like, for due diligence, I should also play Hades for the viewers.
Yeah, it's one of those, you absolutely don't have to play the first one. They can stand alone, but there's a lot of stuff in Hades 2 that is that you will get more enjoyment if you play the first one first.
Yeah, the entire emotional stakes of Hades 2 are that remember all that stuff you loved in Hades? Bang, gunshot wound, body on the ground. Good luck. Good luck getting them back.
There's also these cool little things in it where I won't spoil what it is if you haven't even started, but there's just because of the nature of how the games work, Hades 2 is effectively the opposite of Hades 1.
Yes.
In terms of a lot of the concepts and stuff. So sometimes when you start doing things that are in the same settings or involve the same people as Hades 1, but then it's a flip, it's very fun to be okay. It's pretty cool.
It's a minor point, but I like how many characters in Hades 2 have kind of opposite opinions on Melinoe than they had of Zagreus. Chaos loves Zagreus. Zagreus is their specialist boy, and then Melinoe, they're you are boring, and you kind of just do what you're told. This is tedious and uninteresting to me. Get out of my sight. I was like, Chaos, no!
It's good.
It's so
good.
fun. I'm excited. Hades 2 for me is such a treat because Hades doesn't really have stakes. It does a little bit, but the stakes are get your family talking to each other.
Yeah.
Oh my God, clear communication could resolve all of this. And then Hades 2 is well, that's an element of what's happening, but also a giant nightmare Lovecraftian kaiju monster is trying to eat Mount Olympus. So maybe deal with that also.
So many stakes in Hades 2. It's very fun. Highly recommend everyone should check it out. Before we continue, though, just really quick, what's your favorite weapon in Hades 1? What's your go-to?
Ooh, my go-to in Hades 1 is the punchy gloves.
Okay.
I love a fast, close-in weapon. I've been struggling with Koronach the Heartseeker. I feel so bad because there's a lot of people in the comments who are like, no, I love the bow. The bow's my favorite. And I was like, nope, bow is slow. Bow doesn't hit very hard. I hate it.
The bow, for me, what's the one where you shoot heat-seeking stuff afterwards? Is that the Charon bow? The aspect of Charon?
I think it might be the aspect of Chiron.
Yeah, Chiron, not Charon. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, different guy.
Yeah, different guy, almost the same. But yeah, the aspect of Chiron bow, that's there for me. I'm a big shield guy, but the fists were probably my second favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're super fun.
The shield is what I was using in the early runs where I was still kind of weak and I wasn't sure I could win.
Perfect opening thing with the protection.
Yeah, because as soon as I unlocked the Zeus Aegis with where it can launch the shield, but you still have the shield,
That's a good one.
Affectionately, I referred to this as little baby weenie mode because I could just tuck up in the corner with the shield and let the blitz disc just wreak havoc.
Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. Man, I know what I'm doing after we finish this recording. But let's get into these chapters. So we're covering chapters 53 through 50. Oh, wait, no, I got to ask you the returning guest question. I've asked you how you found the books. I've asked you your cabin. Have I asked you what your nectar and ambrosia would be?
Oh.
Your ideal food and ideal drink? That would be for your third appearance.
Wow. Yeah, I think that is this because I don't think you've asked me that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, food. My dad intentionally gave me really, really high standards for chocolate-based desserts because there's a lot of bad ones. So he was like, here's the fudgiest brownies that have ever been made. And I was like, okay. And then I went out into the cold, cruel world and discovered that nothing else tasted like that. So definitely that, kind of in the same vein as Percy with these are mom's chocolate chip cookies kind of thing. And ambrosia, I am a sucker for a good Shirley Temple.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I always go back to it. I default to it. There was a stretch where I had Shirley Temple fixins in my fridge.
Oh, you had the grenadine, you had the maraschino cherries.
I had the grenadine, maraschino cherries. I think I even had some pomegranate syrup for some reason. Yeah, it was good. Definitely that.
Yeah, I had a fun run. Definitely as a child, had a lot of Shirley Temples because it was a cocktail, but I'm 8.
Yep. That's still the appeal when I'm 30, so hey, you know.
When I worked at Papado Seafood Kitchen for a couple years in high school and college, they didn't feed us because service industry in the United States and Texas specifically. Thank goodness I was making $2.13 an hour plus tips.
What a treat.
They didn't let us eat on the job. We didn't have food breaks, but you could make as many sodas as you wanted, and you could just drink fountain sodas and eat like the table crackers. So a lot of times, just to fight off my hunger and boredom, I would have like table crackers, and I would use grenadine in stuff. So I'd be making Shirley Temples, but with like Dr. Pepper. I would make like cherry Dr. Pepper was kind of my go-to. And then after doing that job for a couple months, like I don't drink soda anymore because it was a large run where I was like, I would be so hungry, and the only food I could eat was soda and crackers, and it just wrecked me.
You've described a war crime, I think, is what just happened. Like, oh, a 10-hour shift, you don't eat food during. Have fun.
I eventually learned the two hacks, which was pack snacks and then just like act like I was getting stuff out of the freezer and then eat granola bars and stuff. And then the real key, which was become friends with the head of the cooks, the line cook, and ask him, yo, what chores do you need me to do around the restaurant? And will you give me food for doing the chores? So I would clean the heaters, I would dust the ceiling fans, I would swap out the menus, I'd do all the stuff he didn't feel like doing. And then he'd be like, yo, at the end of your shift, I'll give you, you know, stuffed mahi-mahi or something. And that changed the game.
It's possible your manager should be prosecuted by The Hague, but like that's neither here nor there.
I think it was just corporate.
Corporate being like, what do you mean humans need food to live? Get out of here with it.
It's one of those things where there's probably some reason of why they can't, like the same reason of how they get away with giving people $2.13 an hour. There's some sort of something awful.
America.
The best. Though I do stand firm in my take that much like in South Korea, everyone has to work in the army for 2 years. Everyone should have to work in a restaurant or just any sort of like service industry job for 2 years.
For sure.
Because it made me a better person.
Yeah.
The bare minimum, it made me not a jerk to people in customer-facing jobs. Because once you go through it, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah. it's so bad.
I've been reforged in the crucible of customer service, and now I'm a good person.
Now I'm a better, more empathetic person.
My third eye's wide open.
Let's do the job I actually like, talking about books. So we're going to begin with chapter 53, which is called Annabeth. We'll do our thing where we retitle the chapters at the end of them. Sorry if I didn't give you the heads up there, which I often forget to do. Basically, since these don't have quirky titles, when we do Heroes of Olympus books, by the end of the chapter, we retitle it with a quirky title.
Good.
Perfect. A la the Percy. So you can start marinating.
That was another like part of the sort of dip into ice water of going from Percy Jackson to the Heroes of Olympus. He was like, what do you mean it's not called I accidentally vaporized my math teacher? Why is it just called Percy?
Why is it just called Levi?
Yeah.
So this is chapter 53, where we last left our heroes. With these specific heroes, they had just defeated Acles, and they were approaching what they had only called at this point night, which I was like, well, it's going to be Nyx, obviously, because I love Nyx from Hades, the video game.
Yeah, my girl.
And I was worried that it wouldn't be. Our girl, I think, question mark, based on how it's described, very different Nyx.
Yes.
Very different Nyx going on in this one, as opposed to your hot mom in
which one? But yeah, no.
That's true. Your hot stepmom, sorry.
It's quite the readjustment too, because like I hadn't realized how much I'd internalized like Nyx, the most supportive purple mom I've ever had. And then it's like, oh yeah, primordial night, as tall as the sky, quasars for eyes. And it's so funny because like I haven't read Percy Jackson in so long that it took my brain like 3 tries to readjust, because I was like, oh right, yeah, the gods are so primordial. And then, not to skip ahead, but they're like, oh no, you weren't on the tour. I was like, right, Percy Jackson. Okay, I got it. I'm up to speed. I'm now familiar once again with the space. Our heroes are going through nightmares, but their solutions are going to be Looney Tunes.
It's quite the vibe shift going into the primordial god world of Percy Jackson, where I think from Uncle Rick's perspective, it makes sense. They are older, more ancient, powerful, confusing beings, whereas still in Hades and Hades 2, it's like, well, everyone's hot and sexy humans.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more like in Hades 2, we're a god. So we're operating on the same scale as everyone else. Like it doesn't matter that Mother Night is also the indomitable night sky. Like in Hades 2, it's like we're hanging out with the moon. That's bonkers, but she's just kind of like, what's up? Here's a blessing. Shoot lasers at people now. Oh, that was my favorite one for Hades 2. But
and she's our sister.
Yeah, and
this
she's
is my sister, the moon.
And it's just like, yeah, Zagreus is a god. It's like it takes a while and a lot of like lore updates to be like, oh, god of blood. Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. but, we're just running around bumping elbows with all these things. Whereas with the demigods, the whole point is like, yeah, the gulf between a demigod and a god is unfathomable. And it's kind of fun because there's just a smidge of like Greek mythology precedent of, Semele and Zeus, like, oh, I'll reveal you my true form because I've been tricked into binding myself to an oath to do it. And she evaporates, basically. And it's like, oh, yeah. So the big dude with the beard, that's not what Zeus actually is. That's just what he puts on for polite company. So like even the Olympians and the Roman equivalents are like, no, that's a human-shaped shell around a concept, basically. Something you can't look at without your eyes going poof. And then these primordial beings in the underworld aren't even bothering to like pass as human, which I think is a really solid way to build it up, because that's kind of always been, even at like the tail end of Percy Jackson, it was like what Kronos actually is, you don't get to see. You get to see him meat puppeting Luke, because that's far less harsh on the eyeballs,
Yeah, okay. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. Yeah, I didn't realize until you said it that Zagreus is the god of blood, because he's always listed as Prince of the Underworld when you play in the game. That's very fitting.
Yeah, it's in the entry on him in Achilles' codex. If you do enough stuff, it just unlocks the last paragraph, and Achilles is like, I theorize the lad may be the god of blood. And Zagreus is like, I guess that makes sense.
That's incredible. I need to go back and read all of those. The codex is always like, you unlock things, and I'm like, right. But I need to mash more.
Yeah, I gotta lock in.
I've got to. Reading, I do that for work. All right, so.
I'm here to kill 20,000 things to get Ares to like me. Thank you. I'm on a mission.
Please, I need to appeal to all of my uncles. So, this chapter begins with, quote, Annabeth had never been scared of the dark, but normally the dark wasn't 40 feet tall, it didn't have black wings, a whip made out of stars, and a shadowy chariot pulled by vampire horses. I wrote my notes, yeah, that'll do it. And then I wrote, Nix, wow, you're so different. So, being 40 feet tall, she is as large as the Athena Parthenos, but is living, obviously, and is kind of like a smoke monster with a dress that is a mix of void black and then also a space nebula. Her face is hard to make out other than the pinpoints of her eyes. She has wings that emit darkness and cause sleepiness with each flap, and she rides on a chariot made of Stygian iron, pulled by all black horses with silver fangs and legs that turn from solid to smoke as they move.
I like how many like messed up horses there are in the Percy Jackson, because as soon as they were like, Percy can talk to horses, they were like, not these horses. You don't want to talk to these horses.
Yeah, this one in particular, it's funny with Annabeth being the narrator because Percy will talk to the horses, but we don't have to hear the horses. And that happens a couple of times where I don't know if I don't think we've ever gotten an Arion chapter where Percy is talking to him, Arion the trash talking horse. So that's one where it's just Percy relaying things, never actually seeing the direct things. And then, yeah, we're getting lots of horses in the Heroes of Olympus series, which is very fun.
There is something I genuinely quite like about getting a little externality on Percy. And I feel like I've talked about this probably on both of the previous episodes I've been on, because this is one of my favorite things about the Heroes of Olympus. Because, of course, with the Percy Jackson series, we're in Percy's POV, and he's basically just like, boy, I sure am panicking and not prepared for what I'm doing right now. I sure hope this works. Whoops, blew myself up. And then from the outside, it's like, that's Perseus Jackson, son of the sea god. He blew up a volcano with himself inside it and was fine. He fought Ares while he was 12. And it's just like, oh yeah, my boy actually is extremely cool and badass. And like with Annabeth's POV, it's a little bit less like glazing, but at the same time, it's like, we know what must be going on inside his head because we're so familiar with him. So Annabeth can just kind of look at him and be like, I hope he doesn't do something stupid. And we can just kind of interpolate what's got to be going through his brain right now because we've been in there for so long.
It's really good. It's really fun. And we get a surprise on this sort of dynamic later when Percy does something smart. So we love that. So Nyx uses her whip of stars to tame the horses, who are named Shade and Shadow, because they want a piece of Percy and Annabeth. And narrator Annabeth reminds us that Percy's still in his death mist camouflage disguise, so he looks like a rotting corpse. But it clearly must not be the best disguise, because Nyx can very plainly see both of them. Annabeth can tell that Percy is trying to understand the horses. It seems like he doesn't like whatever they're telling him. And then Percy says, so you won't let them eat us. They really want to eat us, to Nyx, which is phenomenal. Nyx says, of course not, because she wants prizes like them to herself. She says that she would kill herself if she let her horses or Ackley's have them instead. And then Annabeth just runs with this.
I think what she's saying, because I see that, I think what she's saying is, I'm going to kill you myself. Because obviously the
I must have
sentence
completely misread it.
Such fine prizes, I will kill myself, rather than like, such fine prizes, I'd kill myself.
Oh, I thought it was such fine prizes, I will kill myself. Which I was like, that's a wild thing to put in a book. Yeah, that read makes way more sense.
No, she's basically like, no, you're much too nice to let my horses eat. I'm going to kill you. And then they're like, okay, how do we get out of Nick's killing us? Because the stakes are a little higher. Because it's always, there's a certain de-escalation of stakes whenever the villain is like, no, I want them alive. And it's like, well, okay, now we're fine. It's like, oh no, don't capture us in an escapable prison. That's far worse than just dying.
This makes way more sense because, yeah, the I will kill myself thing, I was like, that's kind of a wild thing to put in a kid's book because I distinctly remember, I think I was in second grade and one of my friends, AJ, in my K through 8 school asked to borrow one of my pens or pencils or something. And it was one that I liked, but he had to take a test. And I was like, oh, definitely take it. But then I think just being, 7 years old and hearing people say this fully as a joke, just like mimicking what I heard adults say, I was like, if you don't give me my pencil back, though, I'll kill you. Just like thing child says.
Sure,
and
yeah,
then
second grade.
I got yanked out of class a couple periods later by the person who was not my teacher. This other teacher came in, the one that was administering the test to AJ, came in and yanked me out of class and then was like, AJ mentioned that you threatened to kill him. And I was like, what? And she was like, he said something about, clearly AJ was like, oh, I got to make sure I give Mike his pencil back. He said, he'll kill me. Also being 7. And then,
yeah, is this teacher's first day on planet Earth?
That's like, this was one of the times where I was 7 and I was like, I feel like I understand what's going on better than her.
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't serious. Like, I'm not going to kill him. It's just like a thing people say. And then I remember her like counter, which is supposed to be this big gotcha, where she was like, well, you wouldn't just say something extreme like that isn't true. I wouldn't go on a plane and then make a joke saying, oh, I've got a bomb in my suitcase. And in my brain, I was like, that's not a funny joke. Like there's no reason to say that. But I just was just like, okay, yes, Mrs. Van Prague. Like just,
I'm not besties with the TSA agent. We're not cracking wise over what's in my backpack.
Super weird. Yeah. So I was just, the whole time I was like, does this woman not understand turns of phrase? Very wild. No fault to AJ. No fault to him at all. He was an absolute sweetie and a stellar athlete. That kid could hoop. Gosh, AJ could hoop. Shout out to AJ. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So, kill the prizes herself makes much more sense. But Annabeth is running with this, saying, look, no, wait, hold on. Am I right, though? Because I thought Annabeth says...
No, so Annabeth is making a joke. Or rather, Annabeth is she's like trying to throw her off, put her off in rhythm, because he's like, such a fine prize. I'll kill myself. No, don't do that. We're not that scary. What? I didn't mean that.
Oh, there we go. Exactly, cool. And there it all is. Reading comprehension, the worst portion of my SAT scores. So Annabeth runs with the misinterpretation, saying no need to kill yourself over them. We're not that scary. And then Nyx goes, what? No, I didn't mean. And Annabeth goes, well, I'd hope not. We wouldn't want to scare her, would we? And Percy goes, ha, no, we wouldn't. The horses are confused. Nyx asks, don't you know who I am? And Annabeth says, I'm guessing you're Knight because of all, the darkness motifs. But Annabeth adds that the brochure didn't say much about her. And I could only think of the brochure that they got from Hercules in the last book when he gave them Hercules' guide to the Mare Nostrum pamphlet, which was very fun. So Nyx asks, what brochure? And then Annabeth feels around in her pocket saying, oh, I swore I had it. Percy joins in after Annabeth asks, do you have it? He perfectly follows suit. And then Annabeth continues that the point is, Nyx wasn't featured much on the tour. Nyx is very confused. Percy explains, yeah, we're here for the Tartarus tour, for all the hot spots in the deepest pit of the underworld. It's more off the beaten path than Olympus or just the regular underworld as far as tourists go. And Annabeth continues saying that no one mentioned that they'd run into Nyx, perhaps because no one thought she was that important.
It's such a classic bit, and it's still so funny to see it happen because, I don't know, it's one of those jokes that never gets old because, of course, the more self-important and ancient the antagonist is, the less they've probably gotten the Brer Rabbit treatment under any circumstances. It's such a minor point, but I like the way that they describe Nyx's eyes winked out for a moment, which is such a funny way to describe, she's clearly blinking in confusion, but because her eyes are quasars, it's it just kind of looks like they go from being stars to not being there and then back again.
It's really good.
Such a little bit. I thought it was funny.
It's really fun. And it's smart planning on their part because, you're not going to fight Nyx to death. You have to pull some bard shenanigans. And they did, which is great. So Nyx whips her whip in rage. I thought it was fun because when I was writing the notes for that, I was like, I guess you could say cracks the whip. I was like, what's another word for whip other than whip? So yeah, she could say crack the whip. Nyx,
lash.
Lash.
There's
okay.
a few,
There's other.
yeah.
There's okay, cool. Nyx whips her whip in rage, and waves of darkness strike fear into Annabeth, but she knows she has to remain calm. She pushes Percy's sword arm down because he has it drawn. He's ready
the
to
idea
go.
that Percy's been pointing his sword at this Titan the entire time and she's just lowering it. No.
He's such a warrior class in D&D. Just, okay, let me know when I can roll for attack. I know exactly what attack I'm going to do. Just let me know when I can do it. Annabeth fully recognizes that two demigods cannot take down a being older than Gia herself. Have we got to the part? Have I told you how I called Gaia Gia? Because of the
this is new.
Audiobook narrator wildly calls Gaia Gia in these books. So I call her Gia because I think it's hilarious.
That's a very strange decision. Don't they normally give like a pronunciation guide?
You think they would, and they should, but you know who backs this pronunciation, apparently, as I learned in a recent episode? Ken Jennings. He says Gia.
Okay.
Big Pangea guy, I guess.
I guess I can see the logic there, but it's GA is always a ga sound.
It's what you think, but I've kept the bit up, and I will until the end of time because I think it is hilarious.
Cool. I can't promise I won't say Gaia when you do that. Just
you can for sure say Gaia. But you're going to reflexively every time I say Gia. I don't think she comes up the rest of these chapters.
The nitpicker in me will not be tamed. So
that's valid. I feel this because I'm not a coffee guy. I don't get as mad as when people say espresso instead of espresso. Sure, but when people say, I've mentioned on the pod, I get mad when people say et cetera wrong, like et cetera or something.
Yeah.
And then similarly, when people say expecially instead of especially, that one's tough for me because we all, as an American English society, we all say the word especially a lot. And we've all read the word especially a lot. It's never had an X in it ever. At least with espresso, you conceivably, if your parents were like mine, it didn't let you drink coffee because they told you it would stunt your growth.
Right.
You, in theory, went through at least 10 years of your life never saying the word espresso or reading it or needing to know. But especially, that comes in early, really early.
I could also see the logic being like, oh yeah, espresso, because it makes you go fast.
That's also why I give it a pass. I for sure give that one a pass. But especially, what are we doing, folks? Anyway, Percy Jackson, Annabeth steadies herself and asks Nyx how many demigods have visited her on the tour. And Nyx says none and yells that this is unacceptable. Annabeth says it must be because she hasn't done anything noteworthy. She suggests that meeting Tartarus would make sense and be better since the place is named after him, or maybe even Day. And then Percy yes and saying, oh, I'd love to get Day's autograph. And Nyx is furious, saying that she is much more powerful than her daughter Day. And just the improv work from these two, really solid stuff.
Oh,
They'd be great on the Laugh Bloods, the official improv team of Camp Half-Blood.
The chemistry these two have developed over the last 5 years of hanging out together and being in this romantic subplot or whatever is so charming because at this point it's like they know each other so well that they just play off of each other flawlessly with you know that Percy would rather be hitting stuff with his sword and you know that Annabeth would rather be fast talking her way out of every situation, but now each of them knows when to follow the other one's lead on stuff, and I just think that's so charming.
It's really fun. I experienced this with my friends. I experienced this with Kelly. It's also something that now that Kelly and I are a parenting duo of a toddler, sometimes we will get into parenting improv when we're trying to convince our daughter to go along with whatever the plan is or something. We don't want to force her along. So sometimes when it's better for her to be in the stroller or something, we got to tag team approaches to being here's why the stroller would actually be really cool instead of walking. I know you want to walk, but you are quite slow. Sometimes Kelly and I are spitting like this where we're just vibing, we're jazzing, we're hitting the notes. Annabeth then goes, I liked the Arai or even Ackley's better. And Nyx screams that those are also her children. Percy lets out a yawn and goes, I got a lot of children, huh? Phenomenal. And then the book ends chapter 53 with the following. Quote, I am the mother of all terrors, Nyx cried. The fates themselves, Hecate, old age, pain, sleep, death, and all of the curses. Behold how newsworthy I am. And that's the end of the chapter, which I have retitled, We Give Night Terrors. Do you have a retitling of chapter 53?
I like that a lot. Oh man, we take a little stop on the tour. I think that We Give Night Terrors is a lot better, though, a lot more specific.
But the tour is very fun. What a fun thing for them to come up with. And it's funny to mention the tour. So in an earlier episode of the newest Olympian that came out, I think a couple weeks ago at the time of recording this on June 20th, I had mentioned in a live show that I was upset that this book didn't have a map, because so many of the Percy Jackson books have maps, and I feel like the ones that have maps are the times I don't need a map. And this book, I really wanted a map of Tartarus. And I think literally the day after posting that episode, I opened what's in my hardcover copy of The House of Hades. It's on the very back page. It's this fold-out poster, and the poster is a map of Tartarus. And I hadn't done it because the outside of the thing says "open at your own risk" or whatever. No. And I was like, I figured that, I don't think this is actually a risk, but I figured this is going to be some sort of poster. It might have a spoiler in it, so I didn't want to open it. But then I think either just by nature of how I had the book, it like came unfolded or something, and I at least got a glimpse that at the top it said "Map of Tartarus." So it was like the day after I posted it, I was like, oh no. I have this episode recorded, so many other ones in between. I'm not going to be able to correct, but I do know, and shout out to all the people who are being so helpful in the comments and in the emails, being like, oh, there actually is a map. You got to go to the back if you have the hardcover. Like, it's like, yeah, I know. I learned this on Saturday, and then I was editing. I was doing all the production work Sunday, being like, oh dear. Oh dear.
Oh, that's always the absolute worst. It's so fun. The idea of like, well, what if it's dangerous? Like, what if there's a glitter bomb in there or something? I can't open it.
No, it's just purely, I didn't want there to be a spoiler.
Yeah.
And from what I gleaned, there was some stuff that would have been spoilers, because it's a map of Tartarus. Like, there are some parts that I wouldn't want to see. So I'm glad I didn't open it earlier. Shout out to it saying open at your own risk.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's do chapter 54, which is also called Annabeth. We'll retitle it. It opens with, quote, Nyx lashed her whip. Oh, yep, there's another word for whip. Nyx lashed her whip again. The darkness congealed around her. On either side, an army of shadows appeared, more dark-winged auri, which Annabeth was not thrilled to see, a withered man who must have been Garrus, the god of old age, and a younger woman in a black toga, her eyes gleaming and her smile like a serial killer's, no doubt Eris, the goddess of strife.
My girl.
I despise her in Hades 2. I took so much joy in, which I don't think is a spoiler to you if you've not gotten very far in it, but like, it's pretty clear you're going to be able to romance Eris.
Oh, I've finished Hades 2 in my home playthrough.
Oh, you finished Hades 2? Oh, I don't know why.
I'm going to be streaming it from a fresh file, but I've played it all on my own time.
Oh, that makes more sense. Yeah. So I took so much joy in getting Eris all the way up to the romance thing, and then she was like, do you want to take this to the next level? And I said, no. Oh, it brought me such pleasure. Such
brutal
pleasure. Oh.
I gotta say, I think the Hades romances are more compelling to me than the Hades 2 romances.
Yeah, well, I think it's touch and go. In the first one, I only really pursued the Meg romance because I found it to be like the most believable. The Dusa one I didn't love because it felt a little too fan and content creator.
It's the power imbalance of romancing Dusa feels bad, but
I was like, I don't want to do this one.
When you get it all the way up, she's basically like, I think we should just be friends, and Jag is like, oh, thank God, I love being friends, and you get all your Miroja back, and it's awesome.
The Than one, I was just like, you're just too moody for me. I fully see the appeal. I fully see the appeal. Like, I totally get it, but for me personally, I was like, no, thank you.
That's fair.
But then for Hades 2, I thought the Moros one was so boring. I thought that guy is so boring.
He's like Thanatos, but less interesting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And like the thing is, I adore the Thanatos romance because he's moody, but he's exactly like he's so by the book. You know, it's not like I was worried about you or anything. And I'm like, yes, repress those feelings.
Yeah, it was one of those like, I can totally see why people are super into this, but it is not for me. But everyone else, please have fun. That sounds great. It's like when people watch either really scary movies or really gruesome medical shows, two things I just can't watch. And I'm just like, I'm so glad you're having a fun time watching Hereditary.
It's more for you.
Have a great time. I'm going to be over here watching a less scary movie with a jump scare clock up. But I thought the Moros one, going through that, I was like, oh, so this is why people like Bad Boys.
Yes.
Because this is so boring.
This guy has such a good aesthetic, and then he's just like, yes, princess, I think that you are very cool and base. I think the only thing that I thought was quite funny about that is he's like, Melanoe, I'm sorry, I'm promised to another. The fates prophesied that I would fall in love with a Dawnbringer who would bring about a new age of the world and wear a yellow dress, and I just don't see her anywhere, but she must be there because my sisters are never wrong. And Mel's like, wow, that's rough. I hope you find her someday. And I was like, you're both so stupid. This is awesome. But yeah, I think I was really on board with Nemesis, because to me it was kind of like, okay, well, she's got the Meg appeal,
the enemies to lovers.
Yeah,
kinda,
she's kind of got that like Vegeta energy of like, you know, I must prove myself against you. And then it just, I don't know. I kept waiting for it to boil over, and eventually she was like, I guess we can resolve our differences peacefully and make out or whatever. And I was like, okay, this is fine. You know, it doesn't have that spice of like Meg being a boss fight and that never changing.
That's true. Yeah, it would have been fun if there was like a big fight with them. But I did like, I don't want to spoil, but I liked how like when it levels up, I think it was a really fun like leveling up. And then I really enjoyed the Icarus and Millenoi one, because that one, that felt like the Meg and Zagreus one, where it was like, there's clearly some history.
Yeah.
They are a good fit. Let's make it happen. And I really enjoyed those ones. So I think I was like 2 and 2. I liked 2 of them. The other 2 I didn't find particularly compelling.
I like Icarus as a character, and I like his and Meg's dynamic. I think for me as a ship, it was a little less compelling, because for me, Icarus was similarly boring to Moros, of like, he's just a sweet boy next door who just wants to be helpful. And I guess the difference is that Moros isn't even particularly helpful. He just kind of stands around.
I think that was the difference. It's like Moros is just like, he just kind of like there and says all the nice things, and that's it.
Yeah.
Icarus says all the nice things, helps you out. And then I think I might have just like seen myself in Icarus, because I had a bad boy phase in college that lasted like maybe a month, and I was like, I can't do this. It's like, it's so stressful.
This leather jacket is so sticky.
Oh, I was like, I can't. I was like texting multiple girls at the same time, and I was like, this feels wrong. I can't do it. I was so short lived. It was bad.
Wow.
So I definitely saw that. But then when it starts to level up, he's like, wait, really? You like me? And I was like, okay, yeah. Hello, Mike Schubert. I was like,
the part where he was like, oh, does your arm ever bother you? I was like, oh my God, that's why our character design is so appealingly asymmetrical. That rules.
It's really good stuff. And no one can get mad at us for spoilers, because this game has been out for like almost a year at this point, right? Like it was like last September or something. Like
something like that. Yeah.
Come on, everybody. Get on it. Get on it. Early access, who knows how long? Get on it. Anyway,
Percy Jackson. Chapter 54.
Chapter 54. So she lashes the whip, all this stuff, Eris, Garrus, blah, blah, blah. All the people show up. Now, Annabeth's instinct is to run, but she knows that is not the move. Percy is also spooked, so she knows, okay, I need to be of sound enough mind for the two of us. Narrator Annabeth says, quote, she imagined a mental frame around what she was seeing. She told herself it was just a movie. A scary movie, sure, but it could not hurt her. She was in control. So then Annabeth goes, yeah, not bad, and continues that they could try and take a photo for the scrapbook, but she worries that since they're all so dark, even a flash couldn't get them to show up in a picture. Percy does muster up yeah, you guys aren't photogenic. Good job, Percy.
What she said.
Nyx calls them miserable tourists, which I love, and she's baffled that they do not fear her. She cites that her son Hypnos once put Zeus to sleep, and when Zeus chased him across the earth for revenge, he stopped short of entering Nyx's palace where Hypnos was hiding. And I love all of my chthonic friends from Hades the video game showing up. I did not know this was part of the Hypnos lore, and that makes me feel so happy.
Yeah. It's so funny to me every time Rick Riordan just like drops something I've never heard of. And I'm like, that's gotta be true, because the amount of research he's done is like 10 times the amount I've ever done. And Hypnos is not a guy I've ever felt the need to Google. So it's just like, no, that totally, absolutely sounds like a straight off the page Greek myth. It's just not one I've ever read.
So her point with all of this is that even the Olympians fear her, but Annabeth's reply is, She says it's getting late and they should grab lunch before trying to find the doors of death. And then the book goes, aha, Nyx cried in triumph. Her brood of shadows stirred and echoed. Aha. You wish to see the doors of death? Nyx asked. They lie at the very heart of Tartarus. Mortals such as you could never reach them except through the halls of my palace, the mansion of night. And then she gestures behind her. And I could only imagine that it pans 3 different times like an MTV Cribs, and it gets slower each of the times.
There's a part of me where I'm like, why is she so dumb? And then I'm like, well, she has never in her existence been challenged, as has just been established. So that's probably why. She's just...
Right, no one's ever tried to trick her.
Yeah.
Fool me once. Shame on you. She's never gotten the ones fooled.
This is the first one.
This is the first. So Annabeth can now see a black marble doorway floating a few hundred feet below. She knows we simply cannot jump to it because missing it would mean being torn into shreds by chaos. That's assuming they also don't get destroyed by one of Nyx's children before even making the leap. So then Annabeth has a brain blast and hatches a plan, which she immediately recognizes as the narrator is a wild shot. But her ideas often are wild, so she feels very comfortable in this moment. Much like my beloved 2026 NBA champion New York Knicks being down by 10 points in the first quarter of the NBA Finals, which we did every game, and we won the series 4-1, as I've established. This is the podcast now. I will shoehorn a Knicks Finals reference into every episode, and this is one, and it felt relevant.
I feel so bad. I was hanging out with a friend of mine who is a New Yorker, and the first thing she said was like, so the Knicks, right? And I was like, what? She was like, oh, right. Because our entire friend group is like musical theater nerds, and she's like the only jock.
That's me.
But I guess she forgot that I also don't keep up with sports. She's like, I'm sorry, you touch grass sometimes. I forgot.
There's many joys of the Knicks winning. One of the simplest was that immediately after they won, I had 63 unread text messages, which is a record and is higher than anything that I got for getting married, engaged, the birth of my child.
Wow.
Definitely more congratulations in one span of time. But stuff that made my heart smile the most was my nerdy, non-sportsy friends being like, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like, that's next level, because I know that you don't really know what's going on, but you know enough to go, oh, hey.
We had that happen a few years back when like the Philadelphia Eagles had a good showing in something. And
they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that would be it. And we had one friend, our Philly friend, who will always say, go Birds. And I was like, this is an appropriate scenario to text. Like, hey, congrats on the thing that happened. And so I was that person.
Yes, it's always good to be that person. Be that person, and then I can return the favor when, I don't know, the new Avengers movie is good. I don't know.
Those days are long gone.
Oh, no. I've not been keeping up with it.
Yeah, good. Smart call. Correct decision.
Annabeth lets out a bored sigh and says that they could settle for one picture, but it can't be a group shot. So she asks Nix who her favorite child is, and they all stare at her expectantly.
I can't believe this trick still works.
It's so good.
It's the equivalent of like, oh, you've split yourself into a bunch of copies, but which one is the original? You know, it's like, it's so funny.
What would your brother tell me? So she doesn't want to pick, which is honestly adorable as a parent. I get it. I mean, I'm a parent of one, but I can imagine if I have multiple, it would be an impossible choice.
I love all my children equally. I don't care for Hypnos.
Her exact phrasing is that they are all equally terrifying, which Percy scoffs at, citing that the Fates and Thanatos were not that big of a deal. He says she's got to have a scarier kid. Annabeth says that she should choose the darkest and most like her. Eris and Garrus argue over who is darker. Annabeth acts unimpressed. The Auri start flapping up darkness with their wings. Garrus has darkness emit from his hands. Eris has it emit from her mouth. And every kid is trying to show off how much darkness they can create, like they're a villain in a Kingdom Hearts game.
Darkness, hearts, darkness.
Check out the YouTube super clips of just every time they say darkness or Keyblade.
Riku, darkness. Sorry, please continue.
Gorge, Sora. Narrator Annabeth says, quote, if 1,000 giant octopuses had squirted ink at the same time at the bottom of the deepest, most sunless ocean trench, it could not have been blacker. Annabeth might as well have been blind. She gripped Percy's hand and steeled her nerves. Nix finally yells that she cannot see anything. Every kid tries to take credit for this predicament. They all start arguing, and then they're bumping into each other. It somehow gets even darker, so Annabeth turns to Percy and asks, ready? And I wrote in my notes, for what? And then Percy goes, for what? And then, after a beat, he says, Poseidon's underpants, you can't be serious. That's a wild thing. I know they do the like Greek turns of phrase thing, but that's your father. That's a weird thing to be like, Dad's boxers, what?
I'm almost certain that Poseidon's underpants was never spoken by anyone in ancient Greece. Fairly certain that's a Riordan original.
Probably. We'll have to do our due diligence. So Nyx then calls for Light, immediately languishing that she would make such a request. Eris clocks this whole thing as a trick so that the demigods can escape. And Ari says, oh, don't worry, I have them. Garrus corrects, no, that's my neck. And then the book goes, jump. Annabeth told Percy they leaped into the darkness, aiming for the doorway far, far below. And I just wrote my notes in all caps, oh, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And that is the end of chapter 54.
It's kind of funny because I feel like the way that it was framed was like, the jump is impossible. It's going to kill us. And also the children of Nyx might get our and then it's like, oh no, actually the children of Nyx were the only problem. The 300-foot jump, totally fine.
Super chill.
Sometimes it's a little unclear what the physical capabilities of everybody is. And like, I got used to the Percy Jackson books being like, oh, there is water present. Percy is an unstoppable god. But they're in the underworld. There's no water here. So I'm just kind of like, I'm assuming he's operating on baseline human stuff. And it's like, I've fallen from like 15 feet before. That can break an ankle if you're not careful. 300. quite a leap.
Very, very far. There must be some magic afoot because they end up being okay. Spoiler alert. Hey, it's Mike from the future. So what happened here is the funny combination of Red not having read the preceding chapters leading up to this section and me taking a long time between reading the last time we had a Percy Annabeth set of chapters and reading the ones in preparation for this episode. I forgot about the whole death mist changing their bodily forms and giving them mist powers and stuff, and Red just didn't come across that because they didn't read the previous chapters. They just jumped into this portion. So that's why we were wondering how they made the jump. I'm assuming it's because of death mist abilities. That's how they were able to make a 300-foot jump. I forgot about it, and then when I was going over Sherry's edit from the last time that Annabeth and Percy were in a chapter set and they had the death mist thing going on, I thought, oh no, I'm gonna have to do a Mike from the future. Anyway, back to the podcast. Hey, it's Mike from even more in the future. I need to correct Mike from the future here because there was a time gap between me flagging that I needed to do this re-recording and me actually doing the recording that I forgot that I wanted to open this Mike from the future segment with, is there magic afoot? Yes, there's magic afoot, and you forgot about it, as a way to further call myself out. But now, instead of calling out Mike from the past, I'm Mike from the further future, calling out Mike from the not so far future. Anyway, now it's back to the podcast, I promise. But
hey, it's fine.
That's the end of chapter 54, which I've retitled, We Turned Down the Exposure, because of it getting darker and the whole nobody's ever heard of you angle.
That's really good. Yeah, I don't have anything better than that.
Perfect. All right, we'll take our break here, our mid-roll break, the House of Headlines, where we talk about updates of the podcast and live shows and stuff, and then we'll come back to discuss chapters 55 and 56. Hello and welcome to the House of Headlines Auxiliary Shubio edition. I'm here in the Auxiliary Shubio, standing, by the way. If I've never explained that, the way that I do the Auxiliary Shubio is that I just put all of my equipment on top of the dresser that we have inside of our little walk-in closet situation, and I stand the whole time I do these. I sit for being in the proper Shubio. I stand for this one. So if it feels like I have powerful energy, it's because I'm standing. If it feels like I don't have powerful energy, it's because it's 9:16 p.m. on Sunday, July 12th, and this episode is supposed to drop in 2 hours and change. So anyway, we've got updates with the podcast. Let's get into them. First up, you may have seen that we've got the pre-orders open for the Mayor of Tangent Town pins, as well as the TNR and Aotearoa stickers, the Australia and the New Zealand tour stickers. You can get these early before they're up on the merch store, and shipping costs a little bit more. So if you go to the Newest Olympian's Instagram account, at Newest Olympian, you can check it out. If you don't have an Instagram account, if you go to it on browser, you can still view posts without an account. So that shouldn't be a limiting factor. But if you head on over there, you can see the specific details. But basically, it's like $20 for the pin, which includes pin and shipping. And then the stickers are just $5 each. And you can get multiple things and it doesn't increase the shipping cost. And then all you got to do is pay me on Venmo or PayPal and send an email of the confirmation to thenewsolympian@gmail.com. And then Kelly and I will send you a package. So that's the plan. Pre-orders go through July. And then once July ends, I'm going to be shipping the stuff to our merch store and you can get it online there. So if you're listening in the future being like, oh man, that sounds cool, head on over to thenewsolympian.com/merch. But if it's still July 2026 when you're listening, go. These will be available for $0 of shipping. So even cheaper if you go to our live shows that we've got coming up in the Northeastern United States in August and September. So we've got a show in Brooklyn, New York on August 15th. And then we've got 2 shows in September. One is in Boston on September 20th. And one is in Philly, aka Doylestown, aka Philly, on September 27th. You can get tickets to all those shows at thenewsolympian.com/live. I'm happy to announce that for the show we're doing in Brooklyn, the guests are going to be Sequoia Simone and Paul Kaola, 2 TNO fan favorites. The first act will be covering, I think, the ending or close to the ending of The House of Hades. And then the second act will be some Percy Jackson inspired improv comedy with some talented New York based improvisers. And then for the shows that we're doing in September, I believe those will be the beginnings of book 5. I don't know if it's the exact jumpstart. I have to look at all of the schedule and stuff, but that's what we're looking at. Should be very exciting. Speaking of scheduling and stuff, if you want to plan out for a future Monday so that you have something to listen to while you're bored on your commute or something, the next time we're taking one of our day off days. It's going to be August 3rd, so a little bit of time ahead, but that is on the schedule. That's on the calendar. One final note about this episode. This is the first one that our new editor, Emma Nelsen, did the editing for. Very excited to have Emma on board. Obviously, we're sad to see Sherry go, but she's going on to bigger and better things in that she's going to law school, which is super duper cool. That is so awesome. But huge shout out to Emma for stepping in, filling the role, doing a great job with her first edit, and it's only going to get better from here on out. Very excited, and Emma will be a guest on an upcoming episode in the very near future, so you'll all get to properly meet her via the podcast. So stoked about it. Welcome aboard, Emma. Thanks for all of your hard work. And then the only other thing I can think of is that I just posted a bunch of stuff to Patreon recently, did a big blast bulk upload of a bunch of director's commentaries I had done, talking about recent episodes, giving behind the scenes information about what went into the recording, if it was a live show, what went into the live show, giving clues and information about who are upcoming guests and what's already been recorded but not released yet. And then there also is going to be a new bonus episode coming. We did a Q&A recently that you can watch the live stream replay of. Lots of fun stuff over at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. And speaking of that Patreon, I want to give a shout out to the folks who have joined most recently. So shout out to our newest Super God tier patron, Piggy Piggle, and shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Catherine Connolly, Heather Marissa, and Ren the Stargazer. Heather Marissa was formerly a Potterless patron and then rejoined, so I didn't get a notification. And Ren the Stargazer, I don't know what happened, maybe because they were a free patron and then upgraded, also didn't get the notification that they had joined. So if you're in a similar situation where you've joined the Patreon and you didn't get a shout out for whatever, shoot me a DM and we'll fix it. But thank you all so much for your support. May Zeus bless you that if you have a headache and it's really bad, that it gets resolved. His whole thing was a big headache and then he birthed Athena out of his head. Hopefully that's not necessarily the solution that you go through, but hopefully Zeus can bless you to overcome any headache pain that you have. Now, if you're all caught up in the news Olympian and you're looking for some new content to consume, you're in luck because I make a whole bunch of content and I think you would enjoy some of the other shows that I make. And one that you would enjoy is a little different because it's a limited series podcast, meaning that we've completed it. For the most part, we might add new episodes depending on if there's new films added to this franchise. It is called The Last and the Curious, and it's me and Eric Hamilton Schneider going through every Fast and Furious movie. So I never consumed them. Shocker, shocker. He's a big super fan. So when we were together for one of the tours I did a couple years ago, we watched the first 4 together and then would immediately hop on the microphone to talk about them. And then we continued on through the series. We'd watch them remotely and then immediately hop on the microphone once we had each finished. And then he was talking about it from a nostalgia rewatch perspective and me was going through for the very first time. I made predictions just like I do on TNO, and it was really, really fun. And it's on my brain right now because I'm working on another one of these. As I've hinted about Twilight, I'm working on one with Johnny. It's going to be a little different, but it's similar-ish enough. But if you want to check this one out, you can get it on the Patreon shop. If you go to thenewsolympian.com/Patreon and then go to the shop tab, or you can go to thelastandthecurio.us. So it spells The Last and the Curious, but then you've got a dot before the US, and you can buy it. It's just $5. You get 13 episodes, no ads, and it's high-quality content, all put together by me and Eric ourselves, and we're really proud of it. Check it out. Now, unless you're listening on Patreon, where you get access to ad-free and early release episodes, I'm hoping to get this one up early. I think I can do it. I think I can get this one up before midnight. You're going to hear words from a few sponsors to make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Singapore, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in English, Mandarin, Malay, or Tamil. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back into this episode of The New Olympian. All right, and we're back. Let's do chapter 55, which is also called Annabeth, which we will retitle. It opens with, quote, "After their fall into Tartarus, jumping 300 feet to the Mansion of Night should have felt quick, but it doesn't. Time slows down. Annabeth imagines her own obituary in between her heartbeats. Quote, Annabeth died age 17, assuming her birthday July 12th had passed while she was in Tartarus, but honestly, she had no idea. Died of massive injuries while leaping like an idiot into the abyss of chaos and splattering on the entry hall floor of Nyx's mansion. Survived by her father, stepmother, and 2 stepbrothers who barely knew her. In lieu of flowers, please send donations to Camp Half-Blood, assuming Gia hasn't already destroyed it," which is hilarious. Very good. Very fun. But obituaries are wild because they show up really high in Google results if you search for someone who's dead. So I got to really make sure mine's good. Shout out to anyone listening to this episode after I die, which will be a thing. How do you feel about that with your YouTube videos and stuff? People are going to watch our stuff and consume our content after we have perished from the earth.
It's weird to think about, but I guess, I don't know. I feel like I had my my existential crisis about this really early, so I just kind of digested it. And then, for me, it's like, well, when I'm dead, I'm not going to be bothered by anything. So like whatever happens, happens. There's also a little bit of the sort of like, every artist sort of craves immortality of like, you want to create something that outlasts you. So after a certain point, it's like, oh yeah, this is going to like have some cultural relevance after I'm dead, which is like, well, okay, cool. Successfully, it checked off the checkbox of like outlive my own death a little bit, just a skosh. Fun fact: the first time we made enamel pins, and I held a piece of metal and like like glass in my hand, I was like, this actually will outlive me. This is more solid than I am. And I was like, wow, cool. My art's actually going to outlive a human lifetime now, because everything else is like digital art. You never know when the next like big solar flare is going to hit and wipe out the internet as we know it, or something like that. Or like I have printed books now of my webcomic, which is very exciting, but I'm like, it's paper. I've seen books from the 70s that are already falling out of the spines, you know. But no, enamel pins are forever, actually. Enamel pins will outlive us all.
They will. Yeah. I'm going to have to, I mean, I won't be around for it, but it's one of those things like when I do my will, I will have to put in instructions for like who takes charge of the feed and who gets the ad money and stuff. And I can only imagine like generations and generations, it just keeps going down. And people are like, oh, I've inherited my great-great-great-grandfather's podcast about some books that people used to read. And I have to make sure that the RSS feed is still up there so that I can get the ad money payments. Ugh.
But consider having an inheritance crisis over like who inherits great-grandpappy's Spotify login.
And here's another weird thing. Like my offspring, like my great something could be listening to this, be like, I wonder what my old great-grandfather was like. And it's like, oh, he was just a goob? Okay.
It's going to be really interesting to see what it is a whole other conversation, but like I think probably every person alive today has had more photographs taken of them than in any previous era of history.
Oh, of course.
And I think that's going to be really interesting of like, wow, we found Gramimama's Instagram account and this is what she looked like at age 14, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely going to lose the novelty of, when I come across a photo that was taken of me as a child. It's like, oh, wow, there's like, maybe 100 where it's like, I had to get a new iPhone because I've taken too many photos of my daughter that I ran out of space.
I'm almost at that point, but it's mostly pictures of my cat.
Sure. All valid. All valid.
Yeah.
Anyway, Percy Jackson. So, obituaries, got to make sure mine's good. So they land on solid ground. It is painful, but Annabeth breaks out into a run, dragging Percy along.
I guess they're fine.
Yep, they're just chill. Since she can't see anyway, she closes her eyes to try and sharpen her other senses, and it reminds her of traversing through the dark in search of the Athena Parthenos. Narrator Annabeth says, quote, in retrospect, her journey to Arachne's cavern seemed like a trip to Disneyland. Shout out to the Spawn Con in the Disney Hyperion book. Annabeth starts to feel better as the sound of Nyx's family fighting grows quieter in the distance. And she also feels better because Percy is still by her side. They're still holding hands. So all is good there. Ahead of them, Annabeth hears a sound throbbing like a heartbeat. She feels it as well. It sounds really daunting, so she figures that is our ultimate destination. She smells smoke and hears flickering, so she's guessing torches, which reminds us of the visions we've seen throughout this book from Hecate and others in dreams. Her instinct is that opening her eyes would be a bad idea, so she instructs Percy not to look, and he responds saying that he was not planning on doing so because he can feel that they are in the Mansion of Night and has no desire to see it, so why take the risk? And this makes Annabeth, as the narrator say, quote, smart boy, Annabeth thought. She used to tease Percy for being dumb, but in truth, his instincts were usually right on target. You love to see it.
I really like this bit. There's so much I like about this little interaction, but a lot of it is just like the idea that Nyx and her offspring are one thing, but the Mansion of Night is somehow more eldritch and unknowable than they are.
Yeah.
I kind of really like that. Part of when you were talking about how you didn't think there was a map in the book, I was like, well, that makes sense. This feels like not a place that you can physically map. I feel like it should be very bizarre and sort of like not following traditional 3 dimensions at all. Like as much as I rag on Lovecraft for framing Euclidean geometry is far more accurate than it actually is. We live in curved space-time, no geometry is Euclidean. But like the fact that it's like, oh no, space doesn't work here, I think would be very interesting. But hey, there is a map, so I guess they're not doing that. It's fine.
I'll have to see. I mean, I'm not going to open it fully until the book ends, but I wonder how they write/draw the Mansion of Night. I bet it's probably just a little house on a thing that says Mansion of Night, and then they don't get into the specifics.
Probably, yeah.
But Annabeth's on the same train of thought as Percy. Whatever horrors lie within are not meant for mortal eyes, so we shouldn't open our eyes. The throbbing grows louder, the vibrations are getting more intense. Annabeth senses walls opening up. She smells fresher air sweeping in and then hears the sound of flowing water.
Yay.
And the book ends chapter 55 with the following quote, Annabeth's heart raced. She knew the exit was close. If they could make it out of the Mansion of Night, maybe they could leave the dark brood of demons behind. She began to run faster, which would have led to her death if Percy hadn't stopped her. Oh, whoa.
It's our boy.
So I've retitled chapter 55, No Sight at the Mansion of Night, which feels very Magic Treehouse with a rhyming title, but it just felt really good. Yeah.
You just slammed me back to 4th grade.
Yeah, I love the formula for those is either alliteration or rhyme, or the two things.
Yeah, I think No Sight at the Mansion of Night definitely works. I'm struggling to think of something snappier right now. I guess Nothing to See Here, or like Taken in the View, or something like that.
I like that. Nothing to See Here is great.
Yes.
All right, let's do the final chapter of this episode, chapter 56, which is called Annabeth, and we will retitle it, but it opens with, quote, Annabeth, Percy pulled her back just as her foot hit the edge of a drop. She almost pitched forward into who knew what, but Percy grabbed her and wrapped her in his arms.
Aww.
Very cute. He tells her everything's okay. She trembles in his embrace, not out of fear, but because the hug is so comforting that she wants to stay there forever, but she knows she cannot. She's got to stay sharp for the both of them. She can't let her guard down. This
is a moment where I was like, my OTP's still going strong. Because it's just like the part where she takes a moment to just sort of be like, my boyfriend, and then be like, okay, I can't have a breakdown because what if he needs to have a breakdown later too? Like, where she's like, he needed her too. And it's like, yeah, you're partners in this endeavor. Nobody's individually rescuing the other. You're both in this together, and that's sweet.
Super sweet. Annabeth thanks Percy and asks if he can tell what's in front of them. Percy knows that it's water, but he's still not opening his eyes quite yet. Annabeth agrees. He senses a 20-foot wide river or moat blocking their path. There's no bridge to cross, and he can sense something wrong with the water. They listen, and they can hear thousands of voices yelling for mercy. Annabeth then knows what it is. The river Acheron, the 5th river of the underworld, the river of pain. It's the most intense punishment for the most evil of evil, like murderers. And when Annabeth says murderers, the voices go, like you, join us. You're no better than we are. And I feel like that's probably not true. Yeah. Annabeth sees visions of all the monsters that she has faced, and she announces that those were in self-defense. Then she sees visions of heroes that died along the way because of her, like Zoe Nightshade and Bianca D'Angelo. And the voices say, oh, you could have prevented their deaths. And I thought it was funny that, one, no Lee Fletcher mentioned. So, of course, not important enough. Michael, you made the cut, not Lee Fletcher. Selena is one, which I think is wild, because that is certainly Selena's fault and not Annabeth's at all.
Yes.
Then it shows Luke, and the voices say Luke's blood is on her hands. Absolutely not. No. I will not stand for this.
But what I like about this, actually, is that, it kind of seems like if these voices are really coming from the river, they are tailor-made to target Annabeth and her weak points. And the thing with Annabeth that has been established for books and books and books is hubris. Because she's smart, it's always her job to handle everything, essentially, to like find the plan that works the best. Anytime there's a failure in a plan or somebody falls, that means that she wasn't good enough. And this is such a juicy little bit of characterization, because I think all of the demigods are susceptible to this specific, like, if I was just better, I could have saved the day, because they're all heroes. That's kind of par for the course. But with Annabeth specifically, it's like, right, we're all heroes, but I'm a genius. Like, it's kind of higher stakes for me because I have more responsibility. I love this character archetype. I've written this character archetype. I've played this character archetype in D&D. It's so fun because you have the person who's like, we're all badasses, but you're all kind of dumber than I am. So the responsibility of finding the correct way forward is on me. And if anything goes wrong, it's because I wasn't good enough to anticipate and prevent it. And I feel like even though she like knows logically, like, I was not at fault for those people, they made their own choices, it's like, but if you were better, you could have made those choices for them, which is just the exact same flaw she's always had.
Yeah, you could have planned. You're the big planning one. You could have gotten ahead of them.
Yeah.
Yo, so this specifically for her. Yeah, because it's not like she's the big bad fighter and, you know, Percy feels regret when he can't best someone into battle because battling is this kind of thing. That doesn't necessarily apply to someone making poor choices. But if you're a big plan person, then yeah, you can always say, oh, but if I'd known earlier, I could have predated their choice with something else. You're never safe. Ugh. Oof.
As a former competitive chess player.
I was literally going to say, okay. Yeah, I was going to make this analogy next. Yeah, like, aside from just like playing my friends and stuff, I never did like proper competitive chess, and because I just don't think I could live with all of the mental regret and doubting myself.
It's so stressful. It's so annoying. This part of why I stopped is because I was like, I'm not having fun. I just feel bad when I don't do well.
Yes, it's like the best case scenario is relief.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't feel like the triumph of victory. You're like, well, I could lose the next round easily, so like this doesn't mean anything. That might have just been me in circa 7th grade, but that specific, like if I had just been more of a strategist, if I'd seen more moves in advance, I wouldn't have been backed into this corner. Yeah, I wouldn't have had to sacrifice that piece, that kind of thing. You could always be better prepared, and you could always think something through more, which means for smart characters especially, there is no upper limit to how much they're like, but I could have been a little better and saved a little bit more. So I actually really like this moment, and I like how we don't really get whatever Percy's regretting.
We kind of got that earlier in the RI chapters, so...
Oh, okay, yeah. Because it could have easily been something similar, but for Percy, it's a little bit less like it was your responsibility to save these people. A little bit more like if you were more powerful and stronger, then perhaps, you know, that kind of. Because you're right, like Percy's more of a fighter type, so for him, it's a little bit like I'm constantly the underdog and I'm usually fighting immortals, so it's not like I can win, but at least I can survive. So
it's fun. It's good. I think it fits her perfectly. So Percy grabs her hand and tells Annabeth not to listen. They're telling him the same things. He guesses that this is the border of Nyx's rule. He says they got to jump the river, which Annabeth thinks is wild because he just said it's 20 feet. And my thought here that everyone notes was water powers somehow? Question mark? Like, I don't know, the mist will levitate me?
Yeah.
The humidity will power us? So I was curious to see how they made it work.
And the way they made it work is she had her eyes shut, so she didn't see.
Look, sometimes you just got to make it work. And you don't ask questions and you go, So Nyx's kids find them. Annabeth's got her arms around Percy's neck and she screams, go. And then, as you alluded, narrator Annabeth says, quote, with her eyes closed, she could only guess how he managed it. Maybe he used the force of the river somehow. Maybe he was just scared out of his mind and charged with adrenaline. Percy leaped with more strength than she would have thought possible. They sailed through the air as the river churned and wailed below them, splashing Annabeth's bare ankles with stinging brine, and then they land on solid ground. So this is one of those things, especially because I had kind of guessed this, like, yeah, I think yada yada water powers is fine. It's not the purpose of the book, and maybe a younger, more snarky Mike Schubert would have been more critical of this, but now that I've read more kids' books and I understand how YA works, and because I'm older and I know it's not the point, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, there's enough waves hand going on in these books that, like, sure, vague water something, yeah. That's how I always got annoyed when people are like, oh, Percy could never go from the St. Louis Arch into the river, it's too far away. It's like, his dad's Poseidon, and this is what stopped you?
I like how in the show they just have the river come up to meet him.
It's so smart
way to handle it. Yeah,
so smart.
Because that was, I think, already a headcanon of like, water powers, question mark?
Yeah.
But I do think that this might just be because I've been out of the game for too long, but there's a slight bit where I'm like, they frame a physical task as impossible, and then they just kind of do it, and they're like, all right, I guess we're good. And I guess there's a stretch where it's like, okay, well, if we're sword fighting monsters and the aim of the game is put the sword in the monster, I can kind of believe that you can do that whether or not you're particularly good at this, because they're like, oh, our reflexes, we have demigod reflexes, and like we know ancient Greek automatically. We sort of come with a little bit of superpowers, but everyone seems to kind of be regular human levels of strong and tough for the most part, to the point where it's a little bit noteworthy, where it's like, oh, Percy is temporarily mostly invulnerable to do this fight so that he can just kind of like walk off swords, because otherwise it would be bad, but they have to wash that off of him because otherwise it would be kind of a game breaker. And that works, that's fine. But you do get little things like this where it's like, okay, well, you just fully be dead, and you clearly think you should be dead, and there isn't really an explanation for why you're not dead, but it's also not the point, and I recognize that, and we can just move on. I like it when things are a little bit more buttoned up, but for this, like, I think the leap into Nyx's palace, that doesn't make sense, and that's okay. That's fine. I think it could have just been slightly reframed to be like, the problem, and like, I think we can make that jump. We are pretty tough, but the problem is they are just gonna kill us. So what do we do? But the fact that they have like, they still think of themselves as normal people, I think there's something there from a writing standpoint. Like, they're like, I know we have powers. I've known I'm a demigod since I was like 4 years old, and a part of me still thinks 300 feet, I'll just die. That's falling off a medium-sized skyscraper. But yeah, in this specific case, it's like water powers, waves hands vaguely. Yeah, Percy can do weird with water. And this doesn't seem to be one of those rivers where it's like, if it touches you, you die immediately, because it's like, oh, the brine hits her ankle, so she's fine. So like, maybe he is just like, okay, a little water tornado, launch myself. But we don't need to see it, and it doesn't really matter.
Nah, it's all good. And I think the reason I give this a pass more than like when Leo keeps getting new powers and stuff is that it's been well established that Percy can do stuff with rivers. And there's stuff. He picks up rivers and he channels rivers and he controls rivers and he gets stronger in rivers. So for him to use some sort of river to make him jump big, yeah, sure. So Percy tells Annabeth that she can open her eyes now, but he does let her know she's not going to like what she sees. And she opens her eyes and blinks, and the light is adjusting to her eyes. And then this is what the narrator says, quote, "Before them stretched a valley big enough to hold the San Francisco Bay. The booming noise came from the entire landscape as if thunder were echoing from beneath the ground. Under poisonous clouds, the rolling terrain glistened purple with dark red and blue scar lines." And then Annabeth reveals what I was fearing. It looks like a giant heart, and Percy goes, "The heart of Tartarus," and I screamed, "Tartarus! Tartarus!" So narrator Annabeth describes it further, quote, "The center of the valley was covered with a fine black fuzz of peppery dots. They were so far away it took Annabeth a moment to realize she was looking at an army. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands of monsters gathered around a central pinpoint of darkness. It was too far to see any details, but Annabeth had no doubt what the pinpoint was. Even from the edge of the valley, Annabeth could feel its power tugging at her soul, and she out loud says, 'The doors of death.'" Now, Percy, with a hoarse voice, just goes, "Yeah."
He's just going through it this chapter.
Yep, just going through it. Annabeth realizes that she has not thought about Nyx and her kids, so she asks, "What happened to Nyx?" And she turns around and she sees that they had landed beyond the banks of the Acheron, and that flows back into the volcanic hills, and beyond that is just nothing but darkness. So there's no sign of anyone coming after them, so apparently even Nyx's children don't want to cross this river. So Percy, very powerful to do this.
And a little bit where it's like somehow they landed several hundred yards from the banks of Acheron. It's like, damn, water powers, waves hands vaguely, sure is coming in clutch this chapter.
He jumped really, really far. And
it could still be that like geography in the underworld isn't as firm as it could be, but I don't think that's what they're going.
Time is nonsense. Maybe gravity's nonsense too if they can jump 300 feet.
Who knows?
It happens. When you get into some of the ending levels of video games, sometimes you can just jump really far and you're fine. So like, yeah, and fall damage doesn't happen. We've all played Baldur's Gate 3 and got to the ending. So Annabeth is about to ask Percy how he jumped so far, but then there's a bit of a rock slide. She draws her sword. Percy raises his sword, and then they see Bob the Titan show up, and Bob goes, "Friends!" And he's got his boomerang, but the bristles have been burned off, and his uniform is all slashed up with claw marks, but he does look very happy. Small Bob the kitten is still there on his shoulder and is purring loudly, and Bob announces, "I found you!" and gives them a huge hug. "You look like smoking dead people. That is good." Percy asks how he got here. Did he go through the Mansion of Night? And Bob says no, because that place is too scary. He says he went another way that only works for Titans and such. And Annabeth guesses that he went sideways. And Bob says no, more diagonal.
Now that's some non-Euclidean geometry right there.
Hey. Annabeth laughs, and narrator Annabeth says, quote, "Here they were at the heart of Tartarus, facing an impossible army. She would take any comfort she could get. She was ridiculously glad to have Bob the Titan with them again. She kissed his immortal nose, which made him blink." So then he asks if they're going to stay together now. Annabeth says yes. This is their chance to see if the death mist works. And Percy begins to go, "And if it doesn't?" And then the book ends the chapter with the following, quote, "There was no point in wondering about that. They were about to march into the middle of an enemy army. If they were spotted, they were dead. Despite that, Annabeth managed to smile. Their goal was in sight. They had a Titan with a broom and a very loud kitten on their side. That had to count for something. Doors of death," she said. "Here we come."
Woo!
So good. So good. I couldn't title this chapter anything other than Harderus just because it's a pun I've been making multiple times, but we're like here now, so I had to do it. So I've retitled this chapter Harderus. Do you have a retitle? We've reached the Harderus.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a better title in mind than this. I think we would just get caught up in the water powers, waves hands vaguely. Percy takes a leap. I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, no, I had to look up who Bob was, of course, because I hadn't read the previous part of the book, and it's like, oh, it's Iapetus. That makes sense. But
yeah, he came up first as Iapetus and then turned into Bob in the demigod Files, the in-between book 4 and book 5 side book. He ends up falling into the River Lethe and loses his memory, and Percy goes, "You're our friend, Bob, and you like us." And then
morally questionable.
that gets visited over the course of this book. A big back and forth is, was that bad or not? And ultimately, Bob decides he likes being Bob better. Now he's their friend, and he's been helping them out. So yes, the return of Bob is good. I was thinking and hoping that Damison would join them as well, the one good giant, but it's not too late. I could see him showing up in the next 4 chapters that I'm guessing Percy will narrate. So we will just have to see. But for now, that's the end of this episode. Red, thank you so much for joining. If people want to check you out doing stuff, where can they find you doing stuff?
Yeah, for the most part, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Overly Sarcastic Productions. We are currently in the midst of chill years, so we are doing a bi-weekly upload schedule. So every other Friday, you either get a video from me, which is probably going to be a trope talk, or a video from my channel partner, Blue, which is going to be something historical or a detailed diatribe, which has been fun. Chill year has been really rewarding. I also have a comic, Aurora, which is now available in bookstores, the first 2 volumes, which is very exciting. We also have a podcast, the Overly Sarcastic Podcast, which is an after show for the show. I'm also on a different podcast by the same producer, Rolling with Difficulty, which is a D&D actual play, which is currently in its 3rd campaign, which is fun. But yeah, I think that's about everything on my end.
Nice. Yes. Everyone check out all that stuff. I have been on the podcast at least once talking Percy Jackson stuff. So go on through, give it a listen. It's a fun time. But Red, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you for listening. And until next time, when we see what's going on with these two, what's going on with our other heroes, until then, I'll Percy you later. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Emma Nelsen, and the music is by Bettina Campamanas and Brandon Grugel. If you just cannot get enough of the show, there's a couple of different things that you can do. First off, you can find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Instagram and other places, but Instagram's where we're most active. You can also support the show on Patreon. TheNewestOlympian.com/Patreon is where you get access to bonus episodes, director's commentaries, behind-the-scenes looks in the pod, as well as our Discord. It's a phenomenal community with lots of wonderful TNO listeners. You can get access to that. The TNO Patreon is also where you can get live show replays and other digital goodies, but you can also go to thenewsolympian.com/merch to rep the show with some physical and digital merch as well. Speaking of the Patreon, let's give a shout out to our producer level patrons in the Olympic court level of the Patreon. So shout out to Kelsey Gillespie, Vicky Garcia, Frida, Megan Moon, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sam Reeby, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Mick Walters, Grace, Bradimus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Bella, Percy Jackson, Kit Kat Crumbs, Andrea, not Andrea, Terry Rothfuzz, Certified Ghost King's emotional support friend, Lee Hartley, Marco Redhouse, and Raccoon Moon 149. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth is huge. It goes a long way for podcast growth. So you could talk about the show with someone directly. You could post about it on social media. You could leave us a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. All these things really do help. I appreciate anyone who has done it in the past or will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode where we'll be joined by new guest to TNO, McKenna Finley, to break down chapters 57 through 59 of the House of Hades. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So recently, for Kelly's birthday, I got her a Jane Austen board game and a Jane Austen puzzle. And right above where I'm standing here in the auxiliary studio is that Jane Austen puzzle. So I'm just going to shake that box a little bit, and that'll be our ASMR Mike segment. Thank you so much for listening. I don't know if you can still order it because this was part of a Kickstarter that I did like a year plus ago, but the puzzle at least is called Jane Austen's Regency England 1000 piece puzzle. And then the board game, oh man, I forget what the board game is called, but Dux Somnium, DUXSOMNIUM. They did the board game and the puzzle as well. No free ads, but I guess kind of. Look, if you've made it all the way through an ASMR Mix segment, you deserve getting a little treat. But yeah, it's both like Jane Austen Regency era stuff. Thank you so much for listening.